Hi. Today we're going to focus on part 3 of healing from spiritual abuse. We're going to make this, I'm going to make this the last video of this week because it's already the last video in the spiritual abuse series. So, and I'm going to do that because this week, as many of you know, is Easter and Passover, Good Friday. And I want to sort of focus on that with my family. We like to, it's just something that we really enjoy doing because, at least from my own perspective, I really love Jesus and I just really love him. And I feel very strongly that I owe him my life. So this is a while I honor this all the time, this is a week that I get to honor it extra, I guess is how you say it. I mean, I don't know if it's extra, but we get to put a little more focus on it. So what my family and I are doing, just to share, is there are 7 last things that Jesus said from the cross before he died and rose again. And each of our family members are, including my son-in-law and my youngest daughter's boyfriend, we are all going to take one of the 7 things that Jesus said, and we're going to delve into it deeper. And on Sunday, we're all going to get together, Zoom, obviously, and talk about it and what it means to each one of us. So I'm pretty excited about that. But we want to dedicate that time to that. But we will be back next Monday, and I will start the series of healing from sexual abuse, and we'll start that on Monday. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get into the last part of healing from spiritual abuse. And my focus today is going to be how to apply certain guidelines to spiritually abusive situations. So the first thing is, as a Christian, it's important to know that I am accountable to God's authority first, and not to man's, not to human beings. And, you know, that sounds easy. That sounds like, well, yeah, of course. I mean, if you are a believer, if you believe in Jesus, believer in that sense, believe in Jesus, you obviously are going to put him before human beings. And I think it's one of those things that maybe we just all say that, and maybe I'm alone, okay? But I have to tell you, it was, and I consider myself pretty stubborn and pretty hard-headed and pretty, I'll say a lot of stuff that most of the time I wish I wouldn't have said, but I'm not afraid of some confrontation. And I still struggled a lot with this area, especially when it came to spiritual abuse, because I was so afraid to be wrong. And I'm not sure what the consequence of being wrong was in my mind. I don't know if I was afraid of going to hell or never having money or just, losing any type of blessing, or I'm not sure. Maybe it was a little bit of all of those things. So I tended to do what people told me to do when it came to spirituality. And here's one of the real reasons I did, was because I didn't really know what God said about stuff. And even if I did know, I didn't really trust my perspective because I didn't really have much of a relationship with God. So, and what I mean by that is I didn't really pray or talk to him or really know too much about him. So now I know. Now I know that God's authority comes first. Well, if you got 100 people in a room all telling you different things that God's telling you to do, well, which one's God? And how do you even know if it's right? I mean, look at all the different denominations and all that. Well, who's right? Like, one's telling us you're not supposed to do this. The other one's saying you're supposed to be doing it. Like, you got people all over the place telling you different things. And I'm not necessarily saying any of them are right or wrong. I'm just saying it would be hard to navigate through that. At least it was for me. So what I do is I have a personal relationship with God. I pray to him, I talk to him, I read the Bible, but I do it on my own. And I don't really rely on anyone else to tell me what he's saying. Now, does that mean that I don't talk to people about it, or that I don't listen to a pastor or preacher or spiritual leader about it? Absolutely not. I just absolutely had to have a firm foundation of what I knew I believed, even when other people disagreed with the way that I went about it, even then. So, even if a person tells me that they are speaking for God, when telling me what to do or how to do it, I have learned that I need to know what my Father's voice sounds like. Like I said, I need to know what it sounds like before I know if someone else is speaking for him. I mean, if you had, even if you had a healthy or unhealthy relationship with your parents, I mean, you knew what their voice sounded like. You were in a store and you heard your mom yell at you, or your dad say something to you in the other room. You knew it was your dad. You never were confused that it was someone else's father or mother. And from a healthy perspective, you definitely knew when they were desperately searching you out, or they wanted to give you love, or they wanted to check on you, or anything like that. You did recognize their voice. Well, the same thing can be had with God. But you didn't have to have someone else tell you what your dad was telling you or what your mom was telling you. You were able to find out on your own. Now, the difference being that sometimes we have a hard time hearing, and a lot of that, sometimes that requires encouragement and things like that. So I'll talk about that a little bit too. I look to feel conviction from what's being told to me, which conviction has a result, or has an answer. It has an answerable perspective to it. Like, I felt this strong urgency not to do something anymore, or to do something. Because it challenged me, or it was going to grow me in a certain way. It wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do or didn't want to do, but I could see that it was growing me in an area. I find, though, that condemnation doesn't come with the same result. It doesn't make you feel that way. It makes you feel shameful, or guilty, or judged, or something along those lines. I notice that it has a real dark feel to it, and it makes you feel like hiding or embarrassed or things like that. And if you hear that, if that's what's coming at you, even if the right thing is being said, the right thing being said with the wrong intent or the wrong way can still bring condemnation. So you can trust, if you're a Christian, you can trust what's put inside of you for that, because even if you hear it wrong, over time, God reveals the truth. He even says, you will know the truth, and then the truth sets you free. So he does reveal truth and give you truth so that you can be set free. I look for love to be the language of the life of the spiritual leader. Not just what they say, but what they do. And I'm not talking about perfection here. I'm talking about a life that lines up with their words. So, even if they mess up, they tell you that they mess up, or they don't assume they have all the answers, and they don't say things that can only bring fear and condemnation. They do things that more bring encouragement and love and compassion, and guiding you to a certain place. Now, I want to stop here and say that there are times for more intensity. Sometimes, if your child's really young and they're about to run out into the middle of the street, you're not going to use the same voice that you use if your child is talking back. Like, They don't necessarily have the same extreme. So I'm not dismissing that there are times for people to say things that may be heavier or harsher. Um, I'm just saying that that's not the gauge of their life, that that's the wording that always is coming out. Okay, so the second thing is talk about your situation with a spiritual leader or spiritual leaders that are not involved in your issue. Okay. I know that's kind of hard because it's like, so you're telling me that if I got hurt by this church over here, I'm supposed to go to another church. Like, do they have the same thing that cops have? That's like, what's it called? The blue line or whatever, where no one can pass. And, no pastor's ever going to tell you that another pastor does something wrong. That's why I didn't use the word pastor. I said spiritual leader. So that's someone who has leadership in that area, which means that could be anyone. That could be your neighbor. That could be a pastor. It could be a priest. It could be someone like that. But it could also be like your coworker or a family member or a teacher or a counselor or, your doctor. Like, it could be anyone, but look for the people in your life that guide you with the things I mentioned in the first ones. And you can pray about it, and you can ask for God to bring someone along that will help encourage you that way. Now, I've tried to stay open-minded during my healing. So I made sure to challenge my thinking that all spiritual leaders are the same. Because what I found out was that I started to realize that I thought spiritual leaders were only pastors. That's my problem. Like, that was completely my problem. I don't know why I thought that, but I did. Whatever the reason, that's what I thought. And that's not really true. There's a lot. I mean, if you have any information at all, once you get saved, in the Bible, it says that he doesn't even wait for you to get ready. He wants you to start walking in that direction of helping other people. So that almost automatically puts you in some position of leadership, whether it's in the leadership of your kids, or if you're a teacher, if you're a coworker, whatever it is. So there you go. There's that leadership thing again. So, and the longer you do it, the more you read, the closer you get with God, the more of a relationship you nurture. Well, ultimately, it puts you in the position of people wanting to know why your life looks the way that it does, especially if they know where you came from and where you are now. And if you're being open and honest about who you are. They, like I said, they're not all the same. Even if you don't think in terms of pastors, or even if you do, not all pastors are the same. No one's, we don't stop going to the doctor because we had a bad experience with the doctor. So we're not really meant to say that we can't have anything we can have no relationship with pastors because I had a few, in my case, a few bad relationships with pastors. That doesn't ultimately mean that you can never find pastors that can have that kind of relationship with you. And you don't have to believe the idea that you're always the problem, or that you're just too challenging, or that you're too hard to work with. A lot of times you're not doing anything wrong by asking the questions. Sometimes it's the other person who is taking it the wrong way. They're taking it like you're trying to diminish their authority and I'm talking from personal experience. I'm saying you, but I was challenged a lot of the time where I was being told that I was like, stirring up problems and doing stuff like that. But the reality is I was asking because I didn't understand. Now, am I saying that I never did it that way? Absolutely not. There's a lot of times I was being a jerk and I was trying to cause problems. There were times that I was doing that. But I am telling you, that is normally how I work, is through questions. I don't understand without, how are you supposed to learn about something without questions? Is it just, like somebody's such a grand communicator that they can communicate to every human being and you can never ask a question. And sometimes I was told because of the way of my tone or the way that I did it. But I don't think that that diminishes the need for an answer because somebody doesn't say it in a way that you don't like it. And I know that's heavy. I know that it is. And I've had to live by that. I've had to live by that. So I have people who ask me very hard questions that really I do not want to answer, nor do I want to be nice about it. And sometimes I don't even want to respond at all. Like I want to pretend like it didn't happen. But I mean, if I'm going to say that that's how I should be treated, I think the same would, to stay out of the realm of hypocrisy, I really am going to have to treat others the way I want to be treated. So, let's see. Okay, so like I said, they are not. And they are not all the same. And I had to fight through that, like I said, because I needed full healing from my past. So I had to fight through that. I can't stay there and think that all spiritual leaders are the same, because that stumps me. That means I can't learn from someone. Well, if I can't learn from anyone, I cease to learn. And I don't want to stop learning. And it isn't, I know, I want to make sure I'm not giving the impression that you're only learning by yourself, you and the Bible and God. But that is the majority. But then after that, you're also going to learn from people, and you're going to learn from everything that surrounds you. You'll be able to learn from it if you'll keep your eyes open and your ears open to that. But first you have to, again, here we are again, you have to know what you believe before you can start learning. Otherwise, you'll kind of be back and forth. The Bible uses the example of a boat that's swished back and forth in a storm. That's how you'll kind of live if you listen to everybody and everything. So you kind of have to know who you should be listening to and who you shouldn't. And I'm not going to tell you who that is. That has to be between you and God. Because I'm not free if I can't see that not only do people change, but all people deserve the respect of their humanity, not just their titles, whether it's God-given or man-given. So the thing is that I can't start to believe that all spiritual leaders or pastors or whoever are all the same, because if I do that, I judge them by the exact same thing. And it is not mine to judge them, because they're human beings. And whether they know that they are flawed and whether they know they have issues or not does not diminish the reality that they are just a human being in the exact same boat I am in, and that we're all in. The third, I had to consider how the spiritually abusive attitude was affecting my spiritual life, my relationships, and my personal values. So that was also really hard to face, because I just kept wanting to put it in the lap of the person that I felt was affecting me that way. I did not want to deal with how it was affecting me as a human being. So I had to stop and look at the big picture of my life. I was in turmoil a lot from the hypocrisy. I witnessed and chose to be a part of it as well. That began to crumble my spiritual life, which, ultimately was on me. And then from there, I started to blame God for where he had placed me in my walk. Now, I don't question that even though it ended up in a bad situation or whatever in some of these things, that God didn't have a hand in it. But I do question how long I would have been there had I known God's word for myself. Like, was I there because of God, or did I stay there for myself because I cared more what people thought of me than what God was telling me to do? Now, I don't blame others for the choices I've made, but I have had to heal from believing some of the things I've believed and some of the things that I've done in the name of a person instead of the name of God. I did things that I could never and would never be proud of, and have deep repentance and sorrow that I did. And I think I have told this story before, but a while back there was someone, a friend of mine was sort of, friends of mine were sort of ousted out of a church that I was a part of. And I was told that I had to choose between the institution and choose between the person. I picked the institution. No one made me do that. I can say that there was condemnation and there was guilt and manipulation and all that stuff, and maybe there was, but I chose it. And I've had to repent for it, and I have repented for it, and I have made it right with the people that I did that to. But I had to own my own indictment in it, because how did it make me any different than anybody else? I was still in the same boat. So I've had to learn over time where I'm just they're just people, I'm just people. So I don't blame them. I don't blame myself, because I'm already forgiven, and so are they. The fourth thing is I had to separate myself from spiritually abusive situations and seek out people who were encouraging. Most of the encouragement I received was how important it was that I was listening to God and not man. That was the best encouragement I received. Looking things up and walking in forgiveness through this, and most of that for me, went better when I could get out of the situation and see things clearer. So there's been times that I've had to step out of situations, and really that's kind of a newer thing for me, because I really wait until I'm like pushed out. Like, we just don't want you here anymore. Like, I tend to go there because I don't know. That's probably an area I need to dig deeper in, but I really like wait until and sometimes I self-sabotage and like create some turmoil so they'll get rid of me so I don't have to be there anymore. And it's really just because I never wanted to be there to begin with. So most of these, okay, looking things up, walking in forgiveness through this, and most of that for me went better when I could, and see things clear. I will tell you that initially I isolated myself, and that was not a great idea. I spent a lot of time thinking I was right when I was in isolation, and here's a big one, and feeling sorry for myself. I spent a lot of time feeling sorry for myself, and I'm just going to tell you right now, that's a waste of time, and it sustains the victim mentality that I really wanted to get out of. So I had to get out of it, which meant that I could not sit around feeling sorry for myself, and I really couldn't spend a lot of time defending myself or explaining myself and doing all of that stuff, because mainly I answer to God. So I tried to make the situations right where I could, where I'd done something wrong. Or if I knew that the person had a problem with me. So when I know someone has a problem with me, I try to reach out. A lot of times though, I don't try to guess. If someone has a problem with me and they've never said anything, I really steer clear of passive aggressiveness and things like that. So I don't really pay attention to it. But if someone lets me know that they have a problem with me, or a major pattern changes, then I check into that. And if I reach out and they don't reach back out, there's really nothing I can do about that. So I just forgive, because I really want to let it go, because I don't want to be controlled by any human again. It's a waste of time. It sustains the victim mentality. So, but here's the thing. I only get this one life to do anything. So what do I want to do? Or do I want to one day say it wasn't my fault, I did all this stuff, or never accomplished anything? I did all this, or I never accomplished anything. It's this person's or pastors or leaders or family members or friend or whatever, it's their fault. I don't want to do that. I'd rather take ownership of my life and move on from there. I had to keep moving because I am responsible for my actions, and I wanted to move past the part where I had no say in what I did. I have a say now. I am still learning, and I don't believe that will ever end, especially in my case because I started really late in life. Which is probably a joke because maybe no one ever stops learning, but I choose to never stop learning. But I am very aware that I have a long life of bad decisions. So I have a say now, and okay, especially in my case, because I started so late. I have so many issues still that I don't even know if I know about them, which sounds funny, but none of this would be possible without God. Like, none of it. So I'm now like, without God, I wouldn't know any of the issues that I know that I have now. So he's the one who's revealing them. So I don't even know what he hasn't revealed yet. I'm now a walking miracle because I find that not many people recover from waking up to spiritual abuse, or the real word for spiritual abuse, if you haven't already gotten it, is religion. They seem to leave instead of dealing with it, and I do totally get that. I want people to know, though, that there is healing from spiritual abuse, and even more precious is that healing can be used to help others. So do it for yourself and do it for others, especially if you have children or friends or family that were damaged that way. So on that note, I'm going to end there. Please let me know if you have any questions, comments, ideas, whatever. I would love to hear from you. And we will be back next Monday. And I just want to go ahead and say happy Passover, happy Easter. Thank you for listening and helping me and others pay healing forward. Thank you.